Okay, so basically today's presentation is all about, so a little bit about me. I've been a coach, counsellor, psychotherapist, speaker and facilitator. So probably a counsellor and psychotherapist for 24 years. And I've had my own journey with kind of complex trauma. So today's presentation is really about sharing my own journey as well as working with clients over the last 24 years to basically, I'm really passionate about healing. So I wanted today to really share about things that I've learnt, things that have helped me, things that have helped clients that I've worked with over the last 24 years as a coach, counsellor and psychotherapist. And it's really about helping understand the brain and also combining spiritual practice. Those are the two things that have really helped me: brain-based therapies and spiritual practice. So yeah, Melinda's already given you a little bit of information on me. So the combination of neuroscience and spirituality can really help us to lead happier and healthier lives. So neuroscience is the study of the nervous system, including the brain, how it develops and how it functions. It also studies how the nervous system is affected by disease and injury. It includes brain structure, brain development, brain function, and brain function and brain plasticity, brain disorders. So what is spirituality? Spirituality is a broad concept that involves finding meaning and connecting with something greater than yourself. It can include a sense of purpose, compassion, and altruism. Spirituality is different from religion. Religion is a set of organized beliefs and practices, usually shared by a community or group. Spirituality is more of an individual practice. So what is spiritual practice? Spiritual practice can be anything that helps you to connect to yourself. It can be anything that helps you connect to a force that is greater than you and outside of yourself. It can be things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, prayer, breath work, being in nature, dance, art, and music. Spiritual practice can bring a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to life to make the world a better place. So let's go into the neuroscience part of this presentation. So understanding the basics of neuroscience. We have two brains in one. So our left brain is our more logical, reasoning brain, and our right brain is our more emotional and creative brain. So there's a picture of the brain. I'm not going to go into, given we've only got half an hour today, I'm not going to go into all the basics of the brain, but that's basically what our brain looks like. It's made up of prefrontal cortex, a neocortex. We've got a right hemisphere, a left hemisphere. We've got parts of the brain as the hippocampus. We've got spinal cord, the brainstem. So if I had more time, I'd go into greater depth with understanding all the different parts of the brain. So I'm just going to keep today fairly simple and straightforward. So we have one mind, but three brains. So we have frontal lobes, which is thinking brains. It's reasoning, problem solving, verbal expression, memory for events and facts. Then we have our limbic system, which is our mammalian brain. It's non-verbal, it's emotional and relational. It covers experience, feelings, and gut memories and traumatic memories. Then we have our reptilian brain, which is responsible for our kind of instinctive responses. It's our heart rate and our breathing. It's our kind of primal brain. So early on in our fetal development, we have a wired up, ready to go limbic system that sits slightly above the brainstem. The brainstem forms first, then the limbic system. So we have a functioning brainstem and a limbic system early on. So why is this important? Because a lot of the time, kind of in therapy and in the spiritual world, we're kind of taught to change our thoughts. So that's basically what we know as a top-down approach. When we're talking about the limbic system, we're talking about a bottom-up approach, so brainstem up. And it can often be very hard to change what's going on in the prefrontal cortex, what's going on in the front of our brain when our brainstem and our limbic system is kind of firing. So the limbic system, our primal brain, is wired for fear and threat. When we perceive danger, real or imagined, the limbic system takes sensory perception signals from the skin, audio system, the visual system, the stimular ocular system, and it processes them all at the same time. So basically, as human beings, our limbic system is really prime for fear. So a lot of the time we have very negative thinking, we have very negative responses. This is all not only happening in our brainstem, it's also happening in our body. So the limbic system, so when you're in your fetal state, your limbic system is already developing. So the limbic system is a multitasker and it's built for efficiency. So the limbic system does this faster than conscious thought. The limbic system fires up fractions of a second before conscious thought has a chance to process. The limbic system is a life-saving gift designed to keep us safe. So often we're trying to problem solve, we're trying to sort out solutions from our prefrontal cortex, but really what's happening is there's glucose, there's adrenaline, there's cortisol, everything's happening and firing up in our bodies and happening in our reptilian brain and our brainstem. And we're preparing for threat, we're preparing for danger, and we're trying to solve it from this part of our brain, which isn't really fully operational. So the prefrontal cortex activates in higher levels of thought processing. The prefrontal cortex operates in moments of problem solving, empathy, compassion, creativity, motivation, inspiration, goal setting, use of language, while thought processing. When we are stuck in our fear, it will be good to have problem solving, compassion, and empathy, but we need to be in our prefrontal cortex to do that. So the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system have an inverse relationship. So what do I mean by that? It means that when your limbic system is firing up, your prefrontal cortex actually shuts down. So when the fear and threat is coming up from your brainstem and it's happening in your body, all that stress, all the adrenaline, the cortisol is firing, this part of your brain actually shuts down. So we're trying to use problem solving and logic to solve something that's happening in our reptilian brain, in our limbic system, and things that are happening in our body. That's why brain-based therapies and body-based therapies can be really helpful in helping with mental health and with dealing with trauma, because we can't get this to be fully operational until we learn how to soothe this part of our brain. So when the limbic center is fired up using blood, glucose, and oxygen, it inhibits the resources in the front of the brain. The limbic center turns off our easy capacity to use what resources are in our prefrontal cortex that can help get us out of the situation. We don't come out of the womb with fully wired prefrontal cortex. So the prefrontal cortex isn't even a contender of efficiency of the limbic system until we're in our early 20s. So our prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until we are 25. So here in Australia, there's a lot of focus on cognitive behavior therapy, like how to change your thinking, how to change your thoughts, which, as I mentioned before, is a top-down approach. But our prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until we're 25. Yet the limbic system is happening in our brains when we're in the womb. So this is operating from when we are a fetus, and our prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until our mid-20s. And so the basis of trying to think our way out of situations, trying to change our thinking, is really difficult when your limbic system is continually firing. So from my experience as a psychotherapist who used to specialize in working with trauma, and from my own personal experiences, I couldn't change the way I thought, because my amygdala was so overstimulated, was wired for fear and threat. So when you learn how to soothe these parts of the brain, the brainstem, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and as I said, if we had more time, I'd go deeper into what those parts of the brain actually do. But you can ask any questions if you have questions relating to that. So when toddlers are having a tantrum and teenagers are operating in their teenage years, they're predominantly coming from the limbic system because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. So the prefrontal cortex has the capacity to downregulate the limbic center with delayed gratification, patience, understanding, and empathy, but it's not fully wired up for almost a quarter of a century. So it doesn't mean it's not functioning. It just means it's not functioning at its full maturity until about 25 years old. There we go. Sorry, I'm just having some technical difficulties here. So in the spiritual and psychological fields, we're often told to change our thoughts. We can downregulate our limbic system so we can change our thoughts. It's a bottom-up approach to calm the amygdala first, makes it easier to then apply a top-down approach to change your thinking. So I've found it easier to work on the bottom of my brain first, and then that has helped me to be able to change what's going on in my prefrontal cortex. So the other part of working with neuroscience is we're often operating from what we know consciously. So the conscious mind is only really 10% of what's happening in our brains and our minds and our bodies. So with therapy, coaching, any kind of spiritual practice, any kind of healing modality, we have a higher self, which is about intuition, love and joy and observation. We have our conscious mind, so a bit like the prefrontal cortex. It really focused on goals, actions, willpower, decisions, plans, our conscious mind and analysis and behavior. And then we have our subconscious mind, which rules emotions, values, personal beliefs, cultural beliefs, projections, self-image, fears, imagination, habits, or memories. It needs clear order and images, does not judge, resists change, and wants to serve. And then in the unconscious part of our mind, we have trauma, shame and guilt, violence, and secrets. So when we're only operating from the conscious part of our mind, we're only operating at the top part of the iceberg, just what we're aware of, and we're ignoring higher dimensions. We're ignoring our subconscious mind and the unconscious, which is where most of our programming is. And these parts of ourselves, if we work on focusing on changing our subconscious, unconscious mind, and also tuning into our higher self, we have a far better chance of healing. So again, with the iceberg theory, it's kind of the top of the iceberg is conscious awareness, catching and changing your thoughts, recognizing patterns, meditation, affirmations, gratitude, journaling, counseling and psychology, analyzing cognitive behavior therapy. And then when we look at the below the tip of the iceberg and we go again into the subconscious and the unconscious, we're looking at things like kinesiology, which is a great form of therapy, which is muscle testing, neuroemotional technique, which is a deeper form of kinesiology, again, muscle testing, lifeline techniques, hypnotherapy, EMDR, which I'm trained in, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EFT, emotional freedom technique, PSH therapy, private subconscious mind healing, psychoanalytic and dream analysis. So we need to really look at how we reprogram our subconscious mind and our unconscious mind. So allowing an alignment in healing. For those who want to heal, healing is possible. For those who want to change and are capable of change, healing is possible. As human beings, avoidance and resistance gets in the way. It's just all part of being human. We have to deal with the painful stuff too and be willing to do the work. We have to work with the subconscious and unconscious mind as well. So some people are stuck in an overactive limbic system and therefore have difficulty living consciously. In Australia, as I mentioned before, there's too much focus on cognitive behavior therapy and not enough knowledge about the importance of the limbic system and regulation. I've really loved sitting in and listening to some of the other presenters. I'm really grateful to be part of this virtual summit and the knowledge and the wisdom from a lot of the presenters, you know, art therapists, body-oriented therapists, people working in business. So I've learned a lot too sitting in the sessions. And there's a lot of people that are bringing their knowledge and wisdom in relationship to not just how we think, but also, you know, changing through music therapy, art therapy, mindfulness practices, being empowered. So it's not a one size fits all. We have to kind of take a holistic approach when we're talking about mental health and healing. So in the spiritual world, there is too much focus on change your thoughts and mindset without bringing the healing, our brains and body, and ultimately our spirit. The spirit can be willing, but our brains and body can get in the way. That's why I find combining the science of our brains and our bodies, neuroscience, combined with spiritual practice has helped me a lot and has helped a lot of the clients that I work with over the past 24 years. So comfort, growth, and change. Yeah, they can often be diametrically opposed. We want growth, but we also want to stay in our comfort zone, part of being human. And so in order to heal, we have to be able to get out of our comfort zones. We have to be prepared to grow, and we have to be prepared to change. So with spiritual alignment, you know, who in the group has ever set a goal or wanted something for themselves in a particular area of your life? In order for that goal to manifest, you need to be in energetic alignment to what you want. Your energetic vibration has to match to manifest what it is you want. And so I've found that working on my brain, working with clients and helping them to soothe their amygdala, to come out of that fear and threat response, to learn to, I'm very passionate not only about healing, but about calm and peace. I feel like that's my role to be here on this planet, is to bring more calm, peace, light, and love. So when we're in that energetic vibration, we're able to bring about what it is that we're trying to manifest to lead happier and healthier lives. So why is healing important? Healing is a journey, not a destination. Sorry. Yeah. So healing is important because it's a journey and not a destination. So hearing some of the other speakers talk, it's about continually doing work on ourselves, understanding that, you know, healing takes time. A lot of us have been through traumatic experiences. There's a lot of trauma on the planet. So knowing that there's no quick fix, it takes time, it takes gentleness, it takes safety, it takes patience. And so the more we can learn to be gentle, kind, compassionate, loving towards ourselves, I think that brings about greater healing. So regulating our brain and nervous system through brain-based therapies and spiritual practice can help us to be energetically aligned to happier, healthier lives. Trauma, poor mental health is the opposite of spiritual alignment. That is why healing is important. There is no perfect life or perfect human beings, and we will all have times when we go through hardship and have to navigate life's ups and downs. However, if we work on having better mental health, eating better more of the time, sleeping better more of the time, exercising more of the time, it still allows us for humanness. So rather than beating ourselves up when we don't do the things that we know are going to help us, my philosophy is very much about trying to just do things more of the time. If you can eat better more of the time, if you can sleep better more of the time, if you can exercise more of the time, and still allow that percentage where, you're not going to want to go outside or exercise or eat properly, or you're dealing with stress, or you're dealing with life's ups and downs. That's part of being human. But if we can focus on doing the things that are going to help us more of the time, we're going to have happier, healthier lives, and that creates better mental health and emotional health. So meditation. So once I'm no longer a brain-based therapist. I travel to different organizations. I still do counseling, but I'm running more meditation and mindfulness sessions. So once I stopped being a brain-based therapist and I stopped having brain-based therapies, I still have some brain-based therapies, but I found that when I first trained as a trauma therapist, I could not meditate. I couldn't sit still in my body. I couldn't sit in a chair for 5 minutes. And my trauma therapist at the time told me to start doing walking meditations. So meditation isn't sitting on a mountaintop with your fingers together and your legs crossed. Meditation can be anything. It can be prayer. It can be walking in nature. It can be swimming in the ocean. It can be sitting and trying to quiet your mind. It can be anything. So meditation and mindfulness doesn't have to be structured. It can be anything that makes sense to you and helps you to feel better. There's not a lot of research on the benefits of meditation, but Harvard University has been doing some research into how meditation can improve and help people with depression. So the research that is out there shows that meditation can improve brain structure and function, and it can also benefit the nervous system. Meditation can increase the thickness of the cortex in the hippocampus, which is involved in memory and learning. Meditation can decrease the volume of brain cells in the amygdala, which is involved in fear, anxiety, and stress. Meditation can increase the thickness of the cortex in the prefrontal insular and anterior cingulate cortex. So as I said, if I had more time, we'd go into what those parts of the brain are, but I'm trying to keep this kind of straightforward and simple. Meditation can improve the ability to focus, remain alert, and shift attention. It can help train the prefrontal cortex to better regulate the amygdala. Meditation can activate the brain region associated with more adaptive responses to stressful situations. So meditation has helped me enormously, and I'm really loving not only counseling people, but bringing in meditation and mindfulness programs into my counseling that I do in organisations in Australia. So I'm currently being in nature, focusing on the sun, focusing on the trees. And when we're mindful versus mindful, then our mind is kind of empty. We're more present. So mindfulness is really about focusing on the here and now, the ability to engage demands, work, parenting, driving, etc., when there are distractions internally and externally. Built by learning how to attend to what's going on right here, right now. So when we're just more present to just what's happening in the moment rather than being in the future and being in the past. The goal with mindfulness isn't to completely silence your thoughts or to empty your mind, but to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Mindfulness encourages acknowledging and accepting challenging and difficult feelings and emotions, not pushing them away. Mindfulness is not a quick fix, either is meditation. It takes practice and consistent effort to cultivate. So mindfulness also includes mindful breathing. It can be done anywhere and anytime. It's the cheapest form of therapy. It's about practicing noticing your thoughts without judgment while you're breathing, looking at your thoughts rather than looking from your thoughts. And breathing is such an important thing. We kind of shallow breathe all day. Mindful practices, mindful breathing, meditation practices help to bring oxygen into our bodies, help us to breathe out carbon dioxide. It helps to regulate our nervous system, it helps to regulate our brainstem. So everyday mindfulness. There are many forms of mindfulness, and it's going to be different for everybody. It can be things like just listening to music. Our social connections can be family, friends, being with your dog, being with your children, just hanging out by yourself at times. And also for me, this is a really big one. I love music, and I really love walking in nature. Me being able to just walk with my dog, hang out down in Sydney Harbour. I'm really blessed that I live in an area which is filled with beauty and nature. I'm close to the water, I'm close to the harbour. So that can really help us with mindfulness. So it takes away the busyness, helps us to connect to our soul, helps us connect to our spirit. It can help to quieten our mind. There's nothing like listening to a song that helps you to evoke feelings of maybe calm, peace, joy, happiness. Having people around you that uplift you, that's a really important part of good mental health. Is being able to connect with people who uplift you. A lot of the time we can be surrounded by people who can be very negative and can be very down. And so it's important that, yes, we have connections with people where we may be helping them through something, they may be helping us through something, but it's also important to have connections where you have stillness, you have peace, you have light, you have love and joy in your life as well. It's who we hang out with has an integral part about the quality of our lives. And nature is really abundant. Living in Sydney, we're really blessed that we have beautiful beaches, we have lots of space, lots of greenery and parks. And so it's always time to make sure that we take time out, that life isn't just about bad mental health or poor mental health or trauma, that this is also a very integral part of life. So that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation.